All right. Good evening, Bethel Baptist Church family. Thank you for tuning in. We're really excited tonight to have our missionary come and do an interview with us. Brother Comstock, how are you, and how's the family doing?
We're doing great. We're doing great. We've been surviving our COVID-19 lockdown situation pretty well. And right now, the family's out for a walk, and so they're on our street. We've got our street's about a K and a half, so they'll be gone for a little while. If they do the whole thing, I don't know, and then they'll be back. But they took the dog for a walk.
Oh, nice.
But we're slowly getting out of lockdown, and things are getting a little bit more normal.
Good, good. Well, I'll just jump right into this little interview. Nothing hard, nothing interrogative like tonight. Just very surface questions. I'm sure a lot of our church people already know this because you've been to our church and you've talked to them. But for those of us who are new to the church, why don't you briefly explain how God led you to be a missionary and why New Zealand specifically?
Okay, that's a good question. Um, when I grew up in a great church in Michigan, in the U.S., and so I heard the gospel from a young age and was saved as a child. And so, good church, Christian family, Christian school in our church, etc. Back is my background. So as a teenager, listening to God's word, listening to passages preached on like Matthew 28, I felt God slowly leading me towards missions, but I didn't know where. And so kept praying about that. There was a family in New Zealand, the McLeans, that I had known since I was very young. And so that was definitely in the back of my mind, but I was really open to go anywhere. In college, I was praying about where to go and what to do for my missions internship. And I contacted the McLeans about working with them. And a very long story short, in the end, that trip to work with McLean's, though that was the plan, it didn't work out because they had a death in the family. We're going to be in the U.S., but instead, I was able to work with their coworkers in Hamilton for 10 weeks back in 2004, so a few years ago, and that was Garth and Lynette Piper, who are our coworkers now. And so I went over and I worked with them for 10 weeks, and the Lord really showed me during that period of time that He wanted me as a missionary, and probably in New Zealand. I came back, my wife and I got married, I got a master's degree, and then we started a deputation to go back to New Zealand to work with the Pipers, who were then in Rotorua. And in 2014, we went to New Zealand. I think we were probably with your church back in 2012 for the first time or so. I don't know. I'd have to look at all my records. But in 2014, we went to New Zealand and worked with the Pipers in Rotorua for about a year and a half. And during that time, we also were helping to start a church down here in New Plymouth.
Okay.
And then at the end of 2015, we moved down here to New Plymouth, where we are now.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about New Zealand and the church there, the church that you planted.
Sure. So, of course, as I said, we started out Rotorua, and then we came down to New Plymouth. That in and of itself is quite a long story. New Zealand's quite a first world nation. It's a beautiful place. I'm sure you've probably seen photos or movies or something based in New Zealand. Very, in some ways, very rural. We have about 5 million people, they say now, somewhere around there. So there's a lot of space. New Zealand is the size of the U.S. state of Colorado. I'm not sure what that would correspond to in the Maritimes exactly. I would have to look that up. But so it's pretty sparsely populated in many ways. Some bigger cities like Auckland has around 1 million people, so it's quite a large place. And New Zealand's very post-Christian.
Okay.
In religious background, while statistically the Anglican Church would be the largest church here, largest religion statistically, the average individual just doesn't go to church anywhere, probably hasn't in many years, and really has no interest in it whatsoever. Leave me alone, let me enjoy life is sort of the philosophy here.
Yeah.
And so it makes it hard to do ministry because people are friendly, and then they find out you're a pastor, have a church or whatever, and then that changes everything. And so it can be a little challenging to get to know people. The church is it's a wonderful church. We as I said, back in 2015, we started traveling down for about, or well, actually 2014, for about a year and a half, we were traveling back and forth. And so we had started out with a small core of a church. Some things were complicated, and we ended up losing a few people when we moved down here. And we started Lighthouse Independent Baptist Church, but we did have a core of people already. And so since then, the church has continually grown.
Mm-hmm.
And we, on a normal Sunday, of which we've not had any time recently, for obvious reasons, on a normal Sunday, we'd probably be around 50 for a morning service.
That's great.
And probably around 20 on a Wednesday night,
Wow.
something like that. And so it's exciting. We've had services over 60. And the reality is our meeting space is so small. If you hit 60, it's not good. There's hardly any room for anyone. And our parking is a mess at that point because we have a terrible parking lot. We've tried to look in other facilities, but it's been complicated. But people are growing. We're involved in discipleship and outreach and things like that. And for the last 6 weeks, whatever, we've been messing with this lockdown situation that's really affected things quite a lot. 2 Sundays before our lockdown, I was in our church preaching. I was a guest speaker, and then the Sunday before our lockdown, I was sick, and so I actually haven't been to a normal service at our church for quite a while.
Yeah.
New Zealand became one of the strictest countries in the world as far as enforcing a lockdown.
Okay.
Our lockdown, which lasted 4 weeks, 5 days, under what we call level 4, was so strict. We were basically allowed to walk around our neighborhoods, and we could go to the grocery store, and we could go to seek medical help, the doctor, hospital, and that was it.
Wow.
Nothing else was open. No restaurants, no fast food, no anything. Most people stayed home and either worked from home or didn't work at all.
Right.
And so that was nearly 5 weeks. And so it really affected our church. Some good. I think some people enjoyed being home, getting a lot done. Some people were very antsy to get out. For us, we had just recently moved. We've only lived in this house now for about 2.5 months. So that enabled us to get further unpacked and settled. This is our first house we've ever owned. Right. We finally were able to buy a house back in February. And so that actually has helped. There's still plenty to do, but it's helped with that. We started doing video conferencing for using Facebook Live for our services.
Yeah. How have you found that?
That's been very well received, the live streaming. Some of our services will do, even people messaging in favorites, and we'll sing favorites or testimonies, things like that. And we have a chat group every day going for our church, and people are able to post things and encourage each other and write devotionals, and that kind of correspondence has been good. We just went to level 3, which allows us to expand our bubble slightly. So we were able to expand our bubble with the Pipers, who live only about 6 minutes away. Okay. So now we're able to go over to their house, and they have better internet than we do, which is a blessing as well. And that way we can work together for the services, which are still online. Right. Lord willing, maybe the middle of next week, we go down to level 2, which would allow us to start having normal church again.
Oh, wow.
It's up to the government.
Right.
The last 2 days, we've had 0 new cases in New Zealand. Our region has no active cases at all. And good. I think we're less than 200 active cases in the country. I really don't know why they wouldn't go down to level 2, but you just never know. So we're praying.
How is the government there? Are they strict when it comes to religious activities, or?
Not really. As in restrictive, no. Are they pro, religion? I mean, we have religious freedom. Yeah. But it's pretty liberal, pretty secular in its philosophy, I guess you could say. It's a parliamentary style government. But like at the beginning of this COVID mess, they quickly pushed through a bill basically legalizing abortion. Up until then, abortions were allowed for medical reasons. Doesn't make it right. That was the reality, but that was it. Right. and you had to have a doctor's certificate, things that totally changed. And they talked about having a referendum for that, but it was going to be non-binding. And then anyway, in the end, they pushed it through real quick. There's a petition out right now to have them reconsider it, that they were using COVID as a mask to push their agenda through. But that kind of thing's happened so much in the past number of years. So anyway, that's just the reality. But as far as freedoms go, we have freedoms to meet as a church and serve the Lord and be a witness and things like that.
Good.
That's encouraging and a blessing.
So aside from like your typical Sunday services and like a midweek service, what other ministries do you find have worked with the people there?
Sure. We are involved in some rest home ministries, and that is enabled us to be able to minister to some people in the rest homes, and that's been a blessing. Also given our people some opportunity for outreach.
Right.
We do, as far as outreach, letterboxing, but really just integrating into the community and getting to know people and starting Bible studies really has been the best way.
Okay.
We've done that, everything from using hunting and some contacts through that, or fishing.
Wow.
As Pastor Piper and myself enjoy those things, to homeschool stuff has been a huge thing for us as our family. My wife is the chairman of our regional homeschool group. There's probably 100 or more families involved in that. And that's given us a lot of opportunities to have families into our home.
Wow.
For board game activities or other activities. We've started I've been teaching a history course with the homeschoolers. That's on hold for obvious reasons right now, but using the Bible as a background. So, we start with creation. We dealt with the flood, and we're, Abraham and Ur and the civilizations of that day. And so tying in world history with biblical history, I've been able to do that. And that's been a blessing. Some of our people in our church homeschool as well. So homeschooling has been a really, really neat opportunity. We've had some visitors out to church and some things like that from that. And even one couple I'm thinking of now that attend our church, they're not members, but they're almost that, but they're not. We met solely through homeschooling. That's how we got to know them. So those things have been opportunities. We have kids activities and youth activities and things like that. Fellowship things. We were going to have a church fellowship meal service at our house in March to allow most of the people to see our house for the first time. That was the plan. And that didn't happen. So probably the hardest thing with this has actually been our camps. We try to have, we have a youth camp. Pastor Piper's been the camp director for many, many years now. And we have a multi-church youth camp. We usually have around 100 youth at it.
Wow.
And that's been a huge opportunity for our youth to come together from different churches and fellowship. And it's a Monday to Friday camp, and it takes place in April. So we had to cancel. And that was hard because we had Brent Savinsky, who's an evangelist in the U.S., who is going to be coming and speaking. That was all arranged. He wasn't even allowed to come. And in the end, they locked down everything anyway. We had to cancel camp. And we're going to try to do camp in October if we can. I think we will be able to. And then we'll see how things go. We hope we go back to normal in April. So anyway.
Interesting.
But the camps are normally a huge thing. Then there's a family camp as well, run by a different church, and they'll have 150, 200 sometimes.
Wow.
And that's up near Hamilton.
Okay.
Sorry, you don't even know. It's about 3 hours north of us.
Okay.
And that's a huge encouragement for our churches, because our churches are pretty spread out.
Yeah.
Hour 2, 3, 4 from each other. So that kind of distance can be complicated. It's probably a little bit like that in Nova Scotia.
A little bit.
Back.
A little bit. Yeah. Pretty
Yeah.
Interesting. I find that homeschooling thing very interesting. I got another question. This one is might be a long question, but I'll narrow it down. What is one, if you could just narrow it down to one, the greatest obstacle you have with ministering to people there?
Wow.
Tough. I know there's probably a whole handful, but if you could just narrow it down, give us a one.
Well, ministering depends who you're ministering to. um, yeah, ministering to the lost is just their lack of interest of anything religious.
Okay.
Um, you know, if someone's a Catholic, at least you can meet them on religious grounds a little bit. You know, you believe the Bible,
Yeah.
and you at least believe there's a God, and you believe in creation. I mean, there's some common ground you can
Right.
meet with them.
Right.
But when someone just is anti all of that, where do you start? It makes it a lot harder.
Right.
For us, even more so. You know, where are you from? Oh, America. Though oddly, because of my Midwest Michigan accent, we do have people ask us if we're Canadian from time to time.
There we go.
Yeah, we do. Usually they'll guess American, but sometimes maybe they're trying to be safe. And they say, "Are you Canadian?" No, no. I grew up 2 hours from Canada, but no. You say you're American. Oh, okay. And then what do you do? Well, I'm a pastor.
Mm.
And, that can shut it down quite quickly.
Right.
And
That's tough.
Trying to get to know people and build those relationships is hugely important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like even our neighbors here, we don't have many because we're out here in the country, but we've hardly gotten to talk to them because this lockdown thing has been so strict.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that.
Right.
That opportunity. We'll have to see how those things go. Should be interesting.
Right.
And as far as our people here, people are pretty private, and so that can be difficult. It takes several years for people to sort of
open up
to you. Yeah. Which we're at that point with many of the people now.
But it took time. Yeah.
It did take time. We have a lot of youth in our church.
Good.
And so that's been enjoyable. Roughly half the people that come to church are probably 25 and under.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
anyway. on a much lighter note, do you have any funny stories, any embarrassing funny stories you can share with us? Maybe deputation or on the field?
Oh, it's so many stories on deputation. 5 years. Here, funny stories. I turned once the wrong way into our one way. That was bad. We have two one-way streets going through.
I don't know how funny that was at the moment.
No, it wasn't. Again, it's trying to get used to driving on the other side of the road. And
That's true.
Like that. These one-ways are weird. And anyway, I turned right. It was right here in New Plymouth a few years ago, and I turned right onto the one-way going the opposite direction. There's a police car right behind me.
No way. No way.
He blared his siren at me, and I thought, man, I'm gonna get a ticket. So I used a driveway to turn around, but he left and didn't.
Wow.
I don't know. Maybe he was busy. I deserve that ticket so badly.
That's funny.
So things like that with driving, but usually driving's pretty. You get used to.
How about the craziest thing is there any weird foods there that you've eaten, or is it pretty similar to like North American?
It's not terribly different. They like lamb and things like that. From time to time, we have a lot of sheep here.
Yeah.
Pies like meat pies and bacon and egg pie and things like that are delicious. That's a little bit different, but nothing hugely unusual, really.
Right. Okay.
Now, back a long time ago, some of the Maori would eat like bugs and grubs and things like that.
Have you had bugs?
Some guy in our church that loves his Maori background, and he's eating them and says they're delicious. Sure, I'm not going to try.
Oh man! All right. So, how about this? How about what's one of the biggest lessons God has taught you since being there?
Oh,
I'm sure there's 100.
Yeah, there's so many. Probably to be patient and
Mm,
let God change people has been, yeah, as a pastor, and I'm still fairly young. I'm 37,
mhm.
so I'm still learning. But it's so hard when you see someone going the wrong direction, and you know what the consequences of that are going to be, and you can't do anything about it really except pray for them.
Yeah.
There's so many times as pastor you wish you could just grab someone and say change, and they would change, or
Right.
somehow you could make someone do something right, and you can't.
Hmm.
You have to be patient. You have to let God work. You have to allow people to make wrong choices at times or face consequences for their actions.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I can think of one of our youth right now that he's doing okay, but compared to where he was in July, he was really on fire for the Lord and
Mm.
growing. It seemed. And he's lapsed back so much since then, and God's still working there, but he's pulled back. So I'm not as close to him now as I was, and he
Yeah.
lives a ways away. He lives on the other side of our mountain, which is, so he lives an hour away. So it's not like I can just drive over to his house easily and say hey.
Yeah.
Um, so just being patient, allowing God to change people, praying for them, probably has been one of many different lessons that
Right.
I've.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a hard one.
Hmm. Yeah. So I'm sure basically all our church people are going to be watching this. So this is my last question. So why don't you give our church just some prayer requests that we can pray for, that for
Sure.
your family?
Yeah. So as far as prayer requests, honestly, probably the most relevant one right now is that we can get down to what we're calling level 2.
Okay.
We're going next week,
Yep.
because if we can, that I don't know exactly what will happen, but when we're on level 2, we at least could have church. They
Mm.
wanted us to still have some spacing. I don't know what it'll exactly be like, but if we could get down to level 2, that would be huge blessing. The government's supposed to make that decision, I think Monday, and then we could be on level 2 on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay.
So that would be huge if we could get back to normal church, and then we could go visit people as pastors and continue on in normal discipleship and mentoring, and so many things that have had to either change or on hold
Yeah.
right now. Um, so so that probably right now is the biggest request.
Okay.
And then, pray for our youth camp that we've had to postpone to October,
Hmm.
that we can have that, and that we'll have reasonable attendance. It's obviously at a different month, different time of year, different school holidays for our youth. So we'll have to see
Work
how
around
that
it.
works.
Yeah.
Pray that people will embrace coming back to church.
Hmm.
I think most of our people have realized the importance, maybe in a new way, of um, the benefits of actually assembling together as a
Good.
church.
Yeah.
Not that we have a huge issue with it, but I think more than ever that people will realize that. At the same time, everyone's gotten very used to not going anywhere for church.
Hmm.
Yeah, even the other day, just getting things around to drive over to the Piper's 6 minutes away was weird after weeks and weeks and weeks of either having services here or watching Pastor Piper do services from his house. Kids get your Bible. One of my kids is like, should I bring my Bible? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So just getting back into that routine, and then that at this time people would have grown closer to the Lord and use the extra time that they
Right.
have.
Exactly.
My pastor back in Michigan, who's been my pastor my entire life at our sending church, he preached a sermon early on that said, don't waste the weight. And I challenge our people on that phrase even. Use it to draw closer to the Lord and closer to your family, and it was a good reminder. So I'm praying that our people would have done the same thing, and that
Right.
they're closer to the Lord than before.
Hmm.
Those are probably the biggest things, that we continue to settle into our house here, and yeah, those things
I
really.
appreciate that.
They're
Those are
need
really
to grow
great
in the
answers.
Lord. Yeah.
Thank you for taking
Yeah.
time. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on. You got a whole house to unpack and a family too. So thanks.
We're getting
I
more
honestly thought
pictures
it
on
would,
the wall.
yeah, I honestly thought it'd be much harder to schedule a time since you're 15 hours ahead, but in one email we got it. So
Yeah. Yeah. So it's what time is it there for you? It's about you
uh
said
8:20, 8:23.
yeah, it's 11:23 a.m. on the next day, Wednesday. So
All
yeah.
right, brother.
Yeah.
I appreciate the interview. I appreciate the honesty. We'll definitely be praying for you. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for praying for us and supporting us, and your prayers are a huge blessing. It was good to see you back in our furlough a couple years ago. So
Yes, yes, yeah.